All right, writers, welcome to the next session of graphic novels. Here we are at session 3. We are going to be generating ideas for our stories by creating some misunderstandings between our characters. So, what does that mean? Well, first of all, when we're writing a story, we have to generate some kind of plot, right? Some kind of problem or series of problems that make a story a story. So one thing we can do is think about our main character and a secondary character that don't get along, and ask ourselves if there's a specific problem that they're facing or reason that they don't get along. So if we don't have that specific reason, then we need to brainstorm. We got to think of that reason that they don't get along. So I'm suggesting that you think of a misunderstanding that could be at the heart of that problem. You're going to choose one and think about how it could affect the characters. Step 3, you got to think about having your main character make maybe some bad decisions based on the misunderstanding that can kind of drive the story along, drive the plot. And then you need to decide if your reader maybe know it's a misunderstanding from the start and they're kind of like reading the story worrying about what's going to happen when the hero or the main character finally realizes the misunderstanding, or if you want to reveal the misunderstanding as a surprise, kind of like a little later on towards the middle or the end. So let's get started. First of all, we need to think about your main character and a secondary character that don't get along. If there's a specific problem they're facing or a reason they don't get along. So here are some really common groupings of characters. So maybe you have a story that has siblings, maybe an older brother, younger sister, younger brother, something like that. You know, maybe they're twins, I don't know. Here's some common problems that they might face: unfair treatment, bullying, or favoritism. Maybe if it's your story is about takes place in a school and there's like 2 kids at school, so maybe there's a teasing or a bullying situation happening. Maybe they're 2 different personalities, like one's really neat and one is very messy, and they both have to like deal with each other. Or maybe you have characters who like is friendly with somebody, but then they're no longer friendly with the main character. That could be. Or let's say it's a parent and a child situation. So maybe like your parent is like nagging you to like clean your room or do the dishes or something like that. Pick up your toys. Or maybe like the child or the adult is not doing something they're supposed to be doing. It could just be bad behavior, like a child doing something that they shouldn't be doing. Or what about some of you who are having some stories that might be have more of like a hero or a villain in it? Maybe the villain wants something the hero has, or maybe there's revenge involved. Maybe the hero wants to save someone in trouble. These are some things that are really common problems that these types of characters face. So if you don't already have something like this, maybe you want to take one of these ideas and roll with it. All right, now the next step is brainstorming and coming up with a common misunderstanding that could be at the heart of the problem. And then you just choose one and think about it, how could it affect the characters. So when I was thinking about this, I was thinking about, there's there's a lot of different kinds of misunderstandings that you could come up with. It might be a misunderstanding about something that happened previously, like maybe prior to like the start, before the start of your story. Something that happened in the past. It could be something that happened, a misunderstanding about how someone thinks or how someone feels. Or it could be misunderstanding like a current situation that like the characters are in. So I was thinking if it was something that happened previously, like before the story started, it could be, thinking a situation in the past was one thing when it was another. Or it could be not understanding how something in the past maybe affects the present. Or if it's a misunderstanding about how someone thinks or feels, it could be maybe thinking that someone was angry or they didn't like you, or maybe the opposite, or that someone did like you when they didn't. Or how about thinking that someone like thought that something was funny when they didn't? That could be one of the misunderstandings. Or maybe a misunderstanding about the current situation. Maybe thinking a situation is a joke when it's serious. Or maybe that something is serious when it's a joke. Maybe taking someone literally. When someone says, like, go jump off a bridge, they don't really mean that. So think about like one of these. This could be one of the ones that you can use one of these here, or maybe you can come up with one on your own. But once you do that, you want to think about how could it affect the characters. That's really important. How could this type of misunderstanding affect the characters? So when I thought about this, I was thinking that I have this character, Elvia, that I think I'm going to make my story about. Now, she wants to be friends with this shy girl, Natalie, who's in her ELA class and math classes. But Natalie wants to be wants someone to stand up, and she thinks that Natalie wants someone to stand up for her and talk to others. And Elvia's like a really strong personality. So then I have to think about what are some bad decisions that this character that I have could make on this misunderstanding. Because I think Natalie is not somebody that wants to like have somebody stand up for her and talk to others there for her. So that's like the misunderstanding there. So I think the bad decision could be Elvia trying to be friendly with Natalie by volunteering to be her partner and answering for her and telling the class about her. But I think it's a bad decision because Natalie wants to be friends with Elvia, but she doesn't really understand why Elvia treats her like she's not smart and isn't capable of talking to the teachers and to the kids. So I have like my idea about this misunderstanding. Like Elvia thinks that Natalie needs somebody to like stand up for her, but Natalie doesn't see it that way. So that's the misunderstanding. And Elvia makes a bad decision. Like she's, trying to answer for Natalie and telling the class about her. And then it leads to Natalie kind of feeling like, hey, Elvia, I want to be friends with her, but she thinks I'm not that smart or that I can't like talk to others or other teachers or the kids. So once I have that, you might want to think about whether or not the readers know that it's a misunderstanding from the start, like worrying about what's going to happen when the hero finally realizes, or if you want to reveal that misunderstanding in a surprise, like towards the end. So I'm thinking I could, for my story, I could have the reader find out about Elvia and Natalie's misunderstanding using like thought bubbles. So like while like Elvia is like trying to talk and like tell people what Natalie is supposedly thinking, maybe I could have Natalie kind of like having thought bubbles and like revealing to the reader like, hey, this is how I really think and feel. Or I could keep the misunderstanding a secret until later and maybe only show Natalie's physical reactions and what she says and not show what she thinks. So maybe, this is like a shy person. I could draw Natalie looking kind of like blushing, looking a little embarrassed. And that would help sort of convey that like this whole thing with Elvia is like not going down like Elvia thinks it's going to be going down. So that's your choice. Something that you want to think about is, if you want to reveal this misunderstanding from the beginning or if you want to keep it kind of a secret until later. And then how you're going to do that in a graphic novel. Here's one way, by using thought bubbles to like display inner thinking, or you could maybe show some character reactions using like, like where their eyes looking or like their, blushing cheeks that kind of show that they're kind of in their body language, right? Her like hands are crossed, her legs are crossed. It kind of shows that she's probably a little bit embarrassed. So there's some choices that you can make when you go to do this work. So just to recap, this is what we're looking for you to do. You got to think about your main character and like a secondary character that don't get along. And you got to think about the specific problem they're facing, the reason that they don't get along. If you don't have that, you want to brainstorm. You got to think of how the problem that they're having, something specific. Maybe think about how a misunderstanding could be at the heart of that problem. You got to choose one and think about it. How could it affect the characters? And then you got to think about like, how does this like misunderstanding kind of lead to your main character making some maybe bad decisions based on that misunderstanding? Because your plot's got to go somewhere. Your story would be really short if there was just a misunderstanding and then it gets resolved on the next page. There's got to be something that happens in between there. So, having them maybe make some bad decisions based on the misunderstanding can help your story move along. And then you want to decide if your readers know that there's a misunderstanding, like right from the start, or if you want to use that misunderstanding, like they want to reveal it later on as a surprise. I can't wait to see what it looks like for you. This could look like jots. It could look like some doodles of some of your characters and their body language, or maybe like thought bubbles. I really am interested to see where you go with